We are today with Peter Rosset from Via Campesina, and we would like to ask some questions. Firstly, what is your experience with Via Campesina?
So I have been working as an international technical staff of Via Campesina for more than 10 years now. But before that, I was with an NGO called Food First that was a close ally of Via Campesina. I got to know Via Campesina very well. And then after I stopped working at Food First, I started to work as volunteer in Via Campesina, sometimes as interpreter. And over a period of time, I transitioned into becoming part of the staff. Now I'm staff for the International Operative Secretariat, and my main task is to accompany all of the processes of horizontal exchange about agroecology around the world, and that means America, Europe, Asia, Africa. Well, Via Campesina we are an international social movement. We are struggling to defend the life of rural people around the world, and that means peasant, family farmer, indigenous people, farm worker, landless peasants, and others. And that means that it's a very big task because there are many threats to rural life from corporations, from bad government policies, from land grabbing, from mining, from agribusiness. And we can only make that kind of a defense of rural life by building alliances. And so we have alliances with the other people, other kinds of popular sectors who share rural areas with peasants. So this may be local fisher people, it may be the population of small towns in rural areas, it may be the pastoralists who are moving their animals around. So all of the peoples, and maybe indigenous people, all of the peoples who share a territory, we must have an alliance with them in order to defend the territories against land grabbing, against mining, against urbanization. And at the same time, we have to, with that alliance, we have to struggle to influence the policy of governments, for example, public policy. Very unfortunately, most public policy in the world is bad for rural people and is in favor of corporate interests, so we have to struggle together to pressure governments, to do protests, to lobby, and even beyond national governments in international spaces, because many of the bad policies of national governments, they are actually coming from beyond the national borders. They're coming from institutions like the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the United Nations system, and so we have to be present with our allies to have pressure in all of those spaces. And we have very big enemies of peasants and rural people, like transnational corporations, like Monsanto, like Cargill, like Parmalat, like international mining companies. And so we are continually working to build as broad an alliance as possible. We use food sovereignty to build the alliance with many other people who will be interested in food. Even urban people also, of course, are very interested in the food system. Environmentalists are also an important ally. And then trying to fight against the bad policies and to fight against the criminal actors, especially the multinational corporations.
Agroecology is one of the most important concepts for Via Campesina and for you in particular. What does it come from, and what are the main characteristics?
I think the main characteristic of agroecology is a way to produce food without using dangerous chemicals. That means without using pesticide, without using fertilizer, without using GMO, and without using monoculture. And it's the opposite of industrial farming. Industrial farming, like practiced by agribusiness, is monoculture. That means a single crop or a single animal over a large area, is using chemicals, is using herbicide, pesticide, very often is using GMO, is destroying the soil, is destroying the environment, is producing unhealthy food, is displacing human beings from rural areas. In contrast, agroecology agroecology is to use the principles of nature, to have many crops, trees, and animals together in an integrated farming system, to use the local resources for soil fertility, for controlling pests, and is very much in agreement with traditional peasant life. Maybe we can say the origin of agroecology is the traditional farming practiced by peasants and indigenous people for thousands of years before modern chemicals and machines were invented. And now agroecology is both a combination of this traditional and popular knowledge and also scientists, academic researchers who are also trying to understand the ecological principles behind this kind of natural or ecological or biological farming. For Via Campesina, agroecology is both a practical way for peasant families and family farm families to farm without getting into debt, because you use your own resources. You don't get credit in order to buy expensive chemicals, and so if you can reduce your production cost, you can have a better standard of living, to produce healthier food for people who are buying the food produced by peasants and family farmers. And it's part of resistance against the dominant corporate agribusiness system. It's a way to fight back, it's a way to survive in rural areas, it's a way to make a positive transformation in our territories. So for Via Campesina has become a very key strategy.
How, in your opinion, agroecology should be scaled up?
In order to scale up agroecology, we need to understand how to farm without chemicals, what are the practices, but it's not enough to have better farming practices. We have to have social organization and we have to have social processes. I can give the example that if my family stop to use farm chemicals and we become ecological farmers, but we don't belong to any process, to any movement, to any organization, nobody will learn from us. There will be no multiplier effect. But if we are part of an organization that has a consciously designed process where other farmers visit farmers who are already ecologically farming and learn from them, then there can be a multiplier effect. So in order to bring agroecology from a small scale to a large scale, to a territorial scale, peasant organizations, family farmer organizations need to design a process based on horizontal exchange social methodology in order to help the families that belong to the organization to go through the transformation to become ecological or agroecological farmers.
Thank you.
Thank you, a pleasure.